The last subject that we're going to touch on during this 8-week portion of methods are exterior finishes for wood light frame construction, and ultimately, how do we protect the frame that we've built from the weather? So in the industry, you'll hear the kind of the phrase tight to the weather when you're on a job site, and that just means that we've enclosed the structure so it can begin to dry out, and so eventually we can prepare for interior work. Once we have all of our exterior sheathing on, which is our OSB, typically, what we'll do is we'll start with the roof and work our way down. Sometimes it really depends on who you work for, but typically before we put a shingle on a roof or any type of roofing material, we need to have an underlayment. And roofing underlayment is installed first, and that provides temporary protection from rain until the finished roof covering is installed. And then you'll notice along the edge of this picture here, right here, is you'll see that there is a metal drip edge along the rake, which is the diagonal angle of that roof, and that helps shed water away from the structure. So here's a little graphic of underlayment and how it's applied, and you always start from the bottom up with exterior finished materials. Same. So for underlayment, you'll start at the low point of the roof, the bottom part, and work your way up toward the peak. We overlap our underlayment kind of in a shingled fashion, and that helps to keep water from running underneath that underlayment and getting that sheathing wet again, which we're trying to avoid.
Underlayment should be placed in an overlapping fashion. The second piece should lay on top of the first strip by lining up the edge with the guideline as shown. Shark skin can be installed with the logo running up or down. Overlaps should run with the flow of water. E.g. nails should be placed along the seam every 2 feet along the guideline.
A lot of times you'll hear the term roofing felt, and that's our traditional underlayment for roofing materials, but you could also use newer synthetic sheet materials like you see here in this picture. And then here's a little tidbit on different types of roofing underlayments and how it is installed.
So before we get into the different types of underlayments we have here, let's talk about the purpose of underlayments. So underlayments are basically what the name implies. It's an underlayment for the final product. So in the case of these three, these are all shingle underlayments. These go between the shingles and the roof deck, or where the plywood or one-by decking is. This is a barrier, a second layer of protection basically, if something were to happen to the shingles. All right, a couple of other ones, you've got ice and water shield and some sticky membranes. They serve a slightly different purpose, but overall, every single product here is a waterproofing product. It's part of a proper roofing system. So let's begin with the basics. Let's go a little old school for a second. So these two rolls are what is called asphalt felt tar paper. Actually, there's a ton of different names for them, but this is one of the oldest forms of underlayment that's still around. This is basically made out of wood pulp, other organic materials ground together to make paper essentially, and then it's coated with an asphalt layer on it. And what the asphalt does is actually helps the water to shed off so it doesn't absorb water. But these two products, you're not seeing a lot of roofing companies install. Occasionally you'll see them because they have pretty much been replaced by this right here. This is called synthetic felt, synthetic underlayment. Tons of different names again, but what this is a polypropylene synthetic membrane. It does the same thing. You can tell that this is actually quite larger, but the benefits of using this over this type of felt paper, first of all, this is a lot stronger. And to demonstrate that, I actually have some samples here. This is the 30-pound felt, and here's your 15-pound felt. So I'm just going to put them together and just show you how easily these tear. Tore just like paper. Here we have synthetic felt. One layer, it's even thinner. Took a lot to tear that. This was almost as hard as beating Dimitri in arm wrestling. These are your main underlayments that you'll find on every shingle roof, or at least you should be finding them there. But let's move on to a little more specific applications. This is what we call ice and water shield. Again, there's a lot of different names for it, but this is a really unique product. So this stuff actually has this plastic here that protects the backside, and the reason this is here is because this is extremely sticky. So the purpose of this underlayment is to actually go in areas that are more prone to leaking. So in valleys of roofs, around chimneys, end walls where the roof meets the wall, that's where you're supposed to put this stuff. And what's so cool about it is that it will actually, when it heats up, it will stick to the decking really well, making it almost impossible to remove. And any nails that get driven through this product will actually seal around it when it gets hot. It's pretty cool. Now another product that's a step above is called High Temp Ice and Water Shield, and this stuff is actually a completely new brand. I've never seen this before, but you can see it almost looks like synthetic felt on the surface, but you still have that sticky backing, and this stuff is extremely sticky. This is called High Temperature Ice and Water Shield because you're supposed to use this in areas where it gets extremely hot. And what I'm talking about is like under metal roofs, copper roof, standing seam, that type of thing. I was reading the label of this product too, and they were saying that it's also good with other types of synthetic tiles, clay tile, concrete tile, that type of thing. So this is a really neat product. I probably want to do a video just on this pretty soon because I've never seen this type of style before. And this is actually just like the synthetic felt. It's got a non-slip surface on it. So it's pretty cool. The final product that I want to talk about, and I consider this an underlayment because it applies directly to the decking, but this is actually part of rolled roofing systems. So rolled roofing are those granulated flat roofs that you see that are on really low pitched areas. This is called base sheet. You have base and cap. So this actually installs before you put the granulated cap sheet on. And what's really cool about a lot of the products, they actually put markings on it so you can very easily tell where your laps are and your spacing on the cap sheet. But it's pretty similar to ice and water shield actually. Again, you've got the sticky backing. It's just quite a bit thicker. You might be able to see the difference here, but that's a base sheet and that's an ice and water shield. It's roughly, I'd say, twice the thickness of it. There's a lot of other underlayment products out there. When I was talking to my rep to get all this stuff, he was getting real specific with certain things. But in this video, I wanted to cover the common ones that we use on almost every job.
So if we have underlayment installed to protect our roof from getting wet, and it's ready for some shingles or whatever type of roofing material we're going to apply, we also need to do the same thing to our walls. And so we'll look at a wall moisture barrier. And you see in this picture, a lot of people call it Tyvek wrap. That's a brand name. It's made by DuPont. But if you drive around town, you'll also see Lowe's building wrap or Home Depot building wrap, or maybe even a local construction company will have their logo on it. And it all basically does the same thing. It's installed after the framing and sheathing. Sometimes it's delayed until after doors and windows are installed. That really depends on who you work for. So here you see a basic Tyvek wrap or a house wrap that's synthetic, but then there's also other materials as well. This is an asphalt saturated paper, which you see to the right. There's also building felt, similar to roofing felt that we just talked about, or a synthetic wrap like that Tyvek wrap. And just like our roofing underlayment, we always install it from the bottom up, and that keeps water from running behind the underlayment. Synthetic wraps, like seen here, offer better air tightness, and they're engineered in a way that repels moisture from the outside but it's still breathable. So if water ends up being trapped behind it, there's still the opportunity for that air to, or that water or moisture to evaporate. So they're usually moisture resistant, but they're breathable. So that means that if there's moisture within the wall, it can diffuse outward, and then that way it doesn't become trapped in the wall and cause structural issues down the road.